Patrick Chovanec, what is your view of earnings season so far? We saw stocks really rise last year, drove the multiple of the S&P 500 up to around 17. Are this week's earnings and first quarter earnings supporting that?
Well, at Silvercrest, we tend to have a very conservative view of how earnings are going to grow. We estimate about 112. That's about a 4 or 5% increase. So by that standard, we're actually fairly happy, and we think that this year we're going to see the earnings growth to justify the multiple in the market.
And you also see nominal GDP growth around 4 to 5%. If that is indeed the case, what are the best sectors or stocks to buy?
Look, I think anything that plays into the global rebalancing. The United States, there's an energy revolution here. Anything that is energy intensive. Technology, even though we've seen a sell-off in technology stocks, I still think the United States has a strong competitive advantage there. Agriculture, even though we're seeing problems in emerging markets, demand for food globally is going to be strong. So those are sectors we like. Speaking
of those problems in emerging markets, you say that Chinese the changing of their monetary policy is actually going to benefit us. How so?
Well, I spent the better part of the past 13 years in China, and I think we're going to see a real correction in China. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. But there's a lot of misconceptions about what that means for the global economy. There's this view that China is the global driver of growth, and we're going to lose that driver. It's going to hurt the U.S. economy. I see it exactly the opposite. Output's going to fall in China, but consumption's going to remain fairly resilient. That's going to generate net demand that's actually going to drive growth in other economies.
And if China does collapse, aren't we going to see that volatility here in the market? Or are we through with the volatility? Should we sell in May and go away? Things have been pretty bumpy so far this year. They're going to get bumpier down the road, especially if something happens in China.
Well, people were saying that last year, and if they did, they missed the boat. Look, I think that there's a chance that there'll be a sell-off because of bad news from China and people interpreting that as bad news for the U.S. economy, but fundamentally that's not the case. So I would argue that people should focus on the long term and focus on the fact that this global rebalancing story is actually a positive story.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Thank you for watching The Street.